So this video is for all of my viewers who identify as members of the atheist community. If you're Christian, this probably won't really apply to you, but feel free to stick around if you want to hear the discussion. Now, as an atheist myself, I feel as though I am constantly backed into a corner and am having to explain my atheist beliefs and justify why I'm an atheist to my Christian friends and family members. And I don't think that that's something that's really fair, because you don't necessarily see a lot of atheists trying to, quote, preach to their friends and family members who are Christian. So what I've came up with is kind of 5 arguments that I always hear from individuals, not necessarily just within my social circle, but from arguments from Christians online who will make videos saying that you shouldn't be an atheist or it's bad to be an atheist. Now, there's 5 types of arguments in particular where Christians will appeal to different types of arguments. Now, this applies to other religious people as well, but since within my social circle and since within the context of the U.S., Christianity is the dominant religion, well, mostly this applies to that religion. So now the 5 types of appeals that they will make is to logic, fear, emotions, even evidence, and condescension as well. So I'll go through each of those and refute them. So now Christians will attempt to appeal to logic and say, how could everything come from nothing? Because there had to be a creator. That's just logic. You don't see buildings without the architects. You don't see a house without the builder. So it doesn't make logical sense to say that everything came from nothing. Now, this argument is fallible because it's self-defeating. The problem is that when you set up this argument, well, you have to follow that argument through the end. So that means that if there is a creator that created the universe, well, then the creator of the universe had to have a creator as well. So that means that there was a God that came before the God who created the universe. But there's also a God that came before that God, and then the God that eventually created the universe, and there's another God, and another God, and another God. And so, if you watch Secular Talk, Kyle Kalinske calls this the fallacy of passing the buck, because you think that you're solving a question, but you're making it more difficult for yourself. So credit to him for that. So that's not a very sufficient argument, because you just make everything more difficult, and you set up an even more problematic hypothetical in your brain that you have to solve. So now, the next thing is that they will appeal to fear. And they'll say, what if you're wrong and there is a God after all, and you live your life as if there isn't one and end up going to hell? Isn't it rational to subscribe to a religion as an insurance policy? Now, that is an argument that, as when I was a Christian, I always thought that that was the most persuasive. But when you learn about the world, you'll realize that there's a lot of nuance to it. So the problem with this is that it's fallible because they are banking everything on one religion. So if really what you want is an insurance policy, if you really want to make sure that you don't go to hell, well, then there's 4,200 total religions in the world, and not all of those are monotheistic. There's some with multiple gods. So wouldn't you really follow through with that logic and subscribe to every single religion to make sure that all of your bases are covered? I mean, when you account for all these religions, why would you think that you're lucky enough to have chosen the correct religion just because you were indoctrinated into that? I mean, if you were born in the Middle East and North Africa, you would probably be a Muslim. If you were born in East Asia, you might be a Buddhist or a Hindu. So why is it the case that your one religion is the insurance policy that you need? Why not all the other religions? What sets yours apart? And that's something that I don't think many Christians can answer. Now, they also appeal to evidence and say that you can't disprove God. But this is problematic because you can't disprove a lot of things. I can't disprove the existence of Dracula or vampires or the flying spaghetti monster. I can't disprove these things because you can't disprove a negative. The burden of proof is on the individual who's saying something is a fact. Now, when you say God exists, it's up to you to provide the historical evidence that God exists, or any type of evidence, empirical evidence, whatever you can provide that will assure me that he's real. But you can't do that, and you can't put the burden of proof on people who are saying that you don't have evidence for your claim, because that's not rational. Now, they also appeal to emotions, and they'll say God loves you and is looking out for you, and because of this, he is a God that is just and deserves your praise. But the loving God argument is also fallible because God killed more individuals than Satan, which is the Bible's main antagonist. So if you have a God that killed more people than the bad guy, I don't see how that is the case that he's a loving God, if he did exist. That's saying that hypothetically, if we found evidence for God's existence, why would you worship him? Because he's apparently a bad God. I mean, if you read the story of Noah's Ark, Christians like to tout that as, oh, we found Noah's Ark, even though we found 30 Noah's Arks. But they'll say, look at Noah's Ark, we found the ship. That's evidence, right? That proves God exists. Well, if all you have to prove that God exists is Noah's Ark, then isn't that offensive? Because God hated humans so much that he created. He gave them free will, but then I guess he changed his mind because they were so evil that he decided to kill them all, including babies. He wanted to protect just this one family, Noah. Kill everyone else, even the kids, even the babies, they're innocent, kill them all. They're all sinners, kill them. How is that morally justified? So if this is the case, why would you want to worship that type of God? So the story of Job kind of compounds this because Satan allegedly said, according to the Bible, that Job is such a great worshiper, but not so much that he couldn't persuade him to stop loving God. And God said, all right, deal. And so because of a bet that God made with Satan, he took away everything from Job, killed all his family just to prove him, see, Satan, look, he does love me. How is that a moral God? Isn't that a petty human emotion? To want to prove your point, to be narcissistic like that. So the loving God argument, it's not very persuasive to me. And when you take into account the fact that there are children with cancer, the Syrian refugee crisis is going on, 200,000 Iraqi citizens died due to the U.S. invasion. How can a just God justify these type of occurrences? It doesn't make sense. So the loving God argument, that's not persuasive at all. Now, they'll also appeal to condescension. They'll say, since you were once a Christian, you were indoctrinated into this religion, well, it's the case that God is like a shepherd, and he will bring you back into the herd, even if he has to throw you over his shoulders and break your leg. He will bring you back. So your atheism is just a phase. You're not really an atheist. But the problem with that is, one, it's disrespectful because as an individual with my own cognitive functions, my own interests, I have the right to say that I believe that I'm an atheist, and I am an atheist. Now, the same is true for you. You have a right to be a Christian, and I don't have the right to throw mud in your face just based on that fact. That would be arbitrary. So the fact that you can't respect my belief and accept that I'm really an atheist and I feel passionate about these beliefs is inherently condescending, because you're kind of painting the picture that atheists are like children. Well, they've just gone astray. They'll come back someday. They're just like kids. No, that's not the case. You see, you're not very different from me if you're a Christian. There are 4,200 religions, as I stated. See, I'm an atheist to all of them. You're an atheist to 4,199 of them. So the difference between me and you is not that far. I just took it an extra step further, and I disregarded the one last religion that I happen to be indoctrinated into. So those are the 5 arguments that I always hear, and I wanted to provide my atheist viewers with some responses and ways to refute these arguments, because I think that these arguments are wrong. You should never question whether or not someone is an atheist. You shouldn't judge them for it, just as I don't think you should judge people for being Christian. So I just wanted to come up with these arguments for you guys so you can kind of use them in your own social circle.